Welcome guys to the Flying Goblin. This is me, Terence Wood, along with
Paula
and
Hernani.
Cool. We're going to be discussing today what sort of deck mechanics work best for us in our various Magic decks. Now, I'm obviously a legendary player, not really legendary. I generally play with the older cards and all that sort of thing. So my set actually comes from a long time ago, whereas you two, I'm assuming, have chosen more recent things and that sort of thing. Okay, so regardless of what sort of Magic you guys are into, you will be able to take something from what we're talking about, and hopefully it will give you inspiration to build your own decks. Okay, my deck that I've chosen is a sliver deck. Now, the way that slivers work is when a sliver comes onto the field, their effects are basically that they affect all other slivers, which is awesome. It's an awesome ability. When I first saw a friend of mine playing with this, I was like, oh my word, I've got to have that deck. And I built my own, and he says that this deck generally is stronger than his deck, which is awesome. So yeah, that's why this deck works for me. The main idea behind it is you build up thousands of slivers, they all get +1/+1, and then eventually the killer card in this deck is the Flying Sliver, which works really, really well because you're attacking them with ground and then suddenly throw in the flying, and most people are not able to block that really well. This deck as well, I've also got three relatively special sliver cards in here. That was the Queen Sliver, the Emperor Sliver, and all that sort of thing. So yeah, basically the Sliver deck is definitely my favorite deck because of its mechanics and because of the way it works. Slivers are once again returning in M14, which is going to be so cool. I was considering breaking up this deck to add in the new slivers, but I just can't see myself doing that. So it looks like I'm going to be building a second sliver deck, which is great for me. So yeah, that's my sliver deck.
Nice.
Hernani, what sort of deck do you have?
Okay, the kind of deck that I'm using, it's called Extort deck. If you do not know what Extort deck is basically whenever you cast a spell, you may pay a white mana or black mana. If you do, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So basically the mechanics around this deck, the way it works, is very simple. You play your card is that it's got Extort, only the cards that say Extort actually work. You put in your card, it's got obviously something signet, so you can't use it straight away. But thereafter, your next turn up, anytime you cast a spell, you can pay 1 more mana extra, white or black. Basically, you can deal 1 extort damage to your opponent, and you gain 1 life. What's nice about this, you're doing indirect damage. You're not actually using your creatures to deal damage. So basically, you can still leave your defenders and deal damage as you're going along. And basically, he can't stop that unless you're playing against a deck that has control. What's also nice about this deck as well, you can deal double damage if you go and look at it. You pay, say for instance, an instant or whatever kind. You say I extort you for say 4, and then thereafter you still attack afterwards. So you're doing double damage at each turn.
With that mechanic, the extort mechanic coming into play, do you find that is making a lot of the damage doing abilities of creatures? Do you find it's cheapened it almost? In that before you needed to pay mana and that sort of thing to have that ability to deal direct damage, whereas now it's just an ability that you can do, and you're also gaining life from it, and you can attack.
Yeah, well, you still use mana to extort someone.
Yes.
Okay, but it's more useful, I think, because even if you just extort the guy for 1 in every turn, that 1 could count, especially in competitive ones.
Yes.
Every life counts. It really counts.
Yes.
Even if it's 1 or 2, at the end of the day, it might obviously win the game for you.
Yeah.
So I do agree with you. It does work out cheaper because you're getting double the back for your money basically.
Yeah,
I think the main thing there is you're gaining life while you're doing damage.
Yeah, exactly. You're doing double damage and you're gaining life.
Because I found when you're playing with that deck specifically, your life total keeps going above 40, 50.
Yeah.
And the opponent just can't get it down.
But you must also remember, it also depends on the type of game that you're playing. This is a standard deck. So standard deck generally turn 6, turn 5. That's when the game decider is really there.
Yeah.
But now if you're playing this modern deck, this will really be considered very slow.
Okay.
Because as you know, modern, turn 2, turn 3, because of your combos,
yes,
is a much quicker gameplay.
Yeah.
So for standard, this is quite quick for standard.
Okay.
But as you know, for any, and you guys as well know, that with any deck, it can be as great as possible. There's always the luck of the draw,
yeah,
and the skill of the players as well, to minimize mistakes.
the main thing that I was going for with that idea is that in the past you have sort of artifacts and enchantments and all that sort of thing that could maybe attach to creatures to give you that ability, whereas now it comes built into a creature, and I'm finding that that is such an awesome ability has that really shifted the balance of power in Magic? Do you think that if you don't have an Extort deck now, you're going to be losing out?
No, not really. There's so many combinations now, it's not even a joke.
Okay.
It can be Extort, you can go for a Goblin deck. Goblin decks are crazy fast.
Okay.
It doesn't really matter. One, it considers, I think it's like 50% luck and 50% skill now.
Yeah.
And creativity. If you go to any pro series, a lot of guys just use internet decks.
Yes.
Obviously, decks that have been in the World Championships in America, they look at, at that point, is who's got the biggest wallets, basically, to buy the kind of cards, and that's the truth, is to buy the kind of cards to make that deck to win a game.
Yeah.
But even then, it's not always guaranteed because it depends on the draw of your cards that you get in your opening hand. But that's why I still like Friday Night Magic, because you still get the guys creating their own decks. It's still very casual.
Okay.
They create their own creations.
Yes.
I mean, we got one player last night, his name is Basil, and I saw he's got ideas from everywhere that he's played, from other decks that he's played, but he's put them all together.
Oh, that's lovely.
From different guys' decks, and he takes their ideas and he puts them together, and he makes them work somehow. He actually won the FNM last night.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But he makes them work. Like when I played against him, I kind of clicked, I saw that combo in this guy's deck at another venue. Then I saw that combo from another guy back then. But he puts them all together, he makes them play the way he wants them to play, which is quite creative. So you don't really have to follow what's on the internet. I think a lot of guys go towards the internet, like Star City Games, to educate themselves and find new ideas, new inspirations, and new ways of guys doing things, because there's always a new thing coming out.
Yeah, no, that's very reassuring. Paula, what do you have to tell us
my
about your
deck is a Mer deck. It's very similar to the Slivers deck. The Mer tend to help each other out. Since I started playing Magic, I have evolved my deck quite a bit. It's changed quite a few times, but I've added a mechanic called Imprint.
And please note, guys, it is not a Pokemon deck. That's not what she means when she says evolved.
Great. Thanks for that.
Just a random piece of information there.
Okay, so the deck now revolves around the prototype portal. Okay, so this one, when you play the card, you use the imprint, and when prototype portal enters the battlefield, you may exile an artifact card from your hand, and then basically you can pay X, which is the cost of that card that was exiled, and you can put a copy of that onto the battlefield. Okay,
so basically what you're saying is you play the imprinting, then you can copy whatever other artifact card you've got onto that imprinted card.
So pretty much this whole deck is artifacts. It's got very little white spells in there. So, for example, I would play Prototype Portal and I would imprint Mer Superior into it. And then what would happen there is I would pay the 2 cost and then tap the artifact, and then I'd get a Mer Superior copy in play.
Pretty cool.
So in other words, basically what's also I think is nice about that deck is that it's colourless, so you can use any mana.
Yeah,
bring it up,
that's
basically.
why I can change this to any other colour and just change the spells. So I've got very little white spells. I mean, I've got True Conviction there, it gives all creatures double strike and lifelink.
Okay.
So I tried to focus a little bit around gaining life and also powering up the creatures. Artifact creatures get +2/+2, that's Tempered Steel. So,
and that is quite a vicious card, because we just played a match and she was hauling out huge creatures every single turn. So yeah, it was pretty tough.
Yeah, so, and like another one here, Semblance Anvil, it's also got imprint. And what happens with that, the exile card, spells you cast that share a card type with that exile card cost 2 less. So if I exile an artifact, artifacts cost 2 less.
Okay.
So basically,
Pretty
again,
cool. So once
Mer
again,
Superior goes out for free, which is great.
so once again, you're working with the whole artifact idea and
So
stuff like
everything's artifacts in here, and what's interesting is with the Prototype Portal, you can bring out a copy of Sword of Feast and Famine.
that. Okay, now the Sword of Feast and Famine, I don't know if you guys out there know, but that was a vicious card that they brought out in the last couple of sets.
Yeah.
Can you just explain to them what it does and why it is so vicious?
Okay, so it is an equipment card. Okay, so you can make copies of that in case you didn't know. The equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has protection from black and from green. Now, whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card and you untap all lands you control.
Which is an awesome effect.
Yes, exactly. So what I tend to do is use up all my mana, attack, and then untap everything. And I can go all over again.
And then, of course, with the copies of equipment cards that you've got there, she can technically equip many of them to many creatures. So essentially, you've got an endless run of mana, so you can basically play whatever you want to play.
So it almost becomes an infinite loop.
Basically, yeah.
There's no limit to 4.
Yeah, exactly. So
it becomes copy. But at the moment, I've only got one of those cards in here. The others are sitting at home. They've got to be added to this deck. So.
And yes, we do know that that depends on the luck of the draw as well. That's in a perfect world. But as any player from novice to expert knows, always a luck of the draw, and depends how your luck is on that day.
Yeah, no, of course. One thing I've noticed, because I built an artifact deck, I ended up running it when I added too many different things and too many things. Oh, that's a great card, let me add it. But then I was taking out a fighting creature. I did that and it just eventually blew up in my face. But the one thing I noticed with artifact cards is that then you're susceptible to destroy creatures, and you're also susceptible to destroy target artifacts and stuff. Do you find that affects you a lot with this deck?
Not necessarily. Like, for instance, like the Day of Judgment or something similar. Destroy all creatures. I've got things that generate tokens, so it only destroys the creatures.
Oh, okay.
But yes, of course, if someone has like destroy target artifact, they can just target one of my creatures.
Yeah. And don't you find that's a slight weakness to your Mer deck, or do you find that that is balanced out very, very well with the strengths of your Mer deck? What do you find it's sort of doing there?
I can play to strengths because you get other cards where you gain life equal to the number of creatures you control plus the number of artifacts you control. So an artifact creature counts as 2.
Oh, okay.
So that can help. It can.
But yet again, that's when.
But I mean, then again, I've got things that just generates more Mers, or I can search for Mers. So
in the end, it doesn't really matter. If you lose a couple, it's fine.
I can grab Mers out of the graveyard as well. So I'll play with the graveyard a little bit as well.
But that's when I think the sideboard is highly important, because it obviously you're going to counter what you're going to experience.
Yes.
Your sideboard is your answers. So yes, it might be great for would go, but when you encounter an opponent that has answers for your artifact, you got to have a good sideboard to obviously counter those.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk about your sideboard.
Well, War Report is that one that I mentioned. You gain life equal to the number of creatures and artifacts.
Okay, so
and
that's
then my
the card
sideboard's got Day of Judgment.
Ah, okay.
So if I'm against something like, say, flying.
Oh, okay.
I can't deal with flying with Mers because they're all not
all
flying creatures. So
on the ground essentially,
Day of Judgment, I'm sorted, get a bunch of creatures back in.
Okay.
So that's how I deal with it.
But again, every side's got a good and bad side to it. It also depends if you're playing against a control player. If a control player is playing against you, Day of Judgment can be countered mostly blue and whatever. So it also depends who you're playing against.
So I mean, Supreme Verdict could be replaced in there, but then that means I have to add blue.
Yeah.
So I don't want to go too many different colours when it's a colourless deck, meant to be colours.
Very, very cool. Awesome, guys. And I'm supposing that a lot of these cards and stuff are available at your store and stuff. If you just want to do a little prompt for your store, a little bit of advertising.
Well, what I generally do with each set that comes out, I do open a box at least, and then those cards all go for sale. So I won't be guaranteed that I'll have every single mythic or something like that. But we do have a store. Online store is store.arfest.co.za.
It will be in the description underneath, guys.
Yes, and there you can just select something, and we deliver anywhere in South Africa. So, or if you're in Joburg and you prefer to collect, to not have a delivery charge, you can come collect as well.
Awesome. Okay, great. Thanks so much to my 2 co-hosts in the show. And guys, please remember to subscribe, and I will see you next time. Thank you very much. Bye.